Hey everyone, this is Chris Beecraft with Underwood & Associates. We're a design-build ecosystem restoration company based out of Annapolis, Maryland. I first want to thank the ASBA for this lovely award for our project here at Kyle Point on the Severn River in Maryland. Secondly, and most importantly, I want to thank Jim and Janet Clausen, the property owners here. They're beautiful folks with a beautiful shoreline, and we're willing to go the lengthy experience for us to get this project in the ground here. We wake up every day to do the right thing for our rivers and streams and ultimately the Chesapeake Bay, and our goal is that we see more projects like these across our waterways.
On the shores of the scenic Severn River in the Chesapeake Bay, homeowners Janet and Jim Clausen wanted to use their waterfront property to do more for the river they love.
The project was actually begun because we had high cliffs which were eroding quickly and large trees were coming down. So we had to do something.
Severn River is about midway up the Chesapeake Bay. It's a highly populated area between Baltimore and Annapolis. 75% of the shoreline along this river has been altered or armored, hardened to prevent erosion over the years.
On part of our property, we had wooden bulkhead and stone revetment. And we knew that as the water comes down past those armored structures, that it erodes the land downriver of it, which happened to be the spit, which was protecting Fox Creek, which is a tidal pond. So it didn't make sense to go to armored structures, and we wanted, therefore, to do the living shoreline.
There has been this movement to try to figure out how do we get the shoreline stabilization components that landowners need and also protect or enhance the public resource.
We have a cliff face here with a lot of energy coming across, again, this 13-mile fetch across the water where winds and waves are allowed to build, and it was banging up against the bottom of the cliff face. Then as a result, it would undermine that cliff face, and a section of the land would then fall down to the base and then erode with those waves out to sea.
So how do you address the erosion issue while also preventing pollution?
This is called a dynamic living shoreline. Relatively new practice for shoreline stabilization that is set apart from all other methods. It employs the energies and tidewater to work for us.
In the state of Maryland alone, there are more than 3,500 miles of shoreline. Before humans began to develop along waterways, shorelines were dynamic, always moving and adjusting.
The 1844 Coastal Geodetic Survey, where they actually truly surveyed the entire Chesapeake Bay. You look at those old maps, and there are plenty of abatements, there's plenty of natural, I call it geomorphologies. So you go look in the 1890s, there's a massive amount of erosion that occurred in those two time periods. What's the reason? We had power boats between those periods.
All of the old practices that were bent on armoring against tidewater energies had detrimental effects in almost every case to the vital living resources.
So trying to restore some of those natural features that once existed here is really important so that we can provide habitat and help improve water quality.
From a purely practical goal of preventing erosion, the project grew to creating habitat.
To pull off such an engineering feat, there had to be a solid design, a good plan, and seamless execution in the construction process.
This project was engineered using empirical ratios for headland embayments all across the Chesapeake Bay. The idea behind this headland breakwater approach is that it dissipates wave energy. So a revetment or a bulkhead is engineered to withstand the forces of nature. They are armoring against it.
I've been working with living shorelines for about 35 years now. And over the years, it's evolved. We were pretty conservative in the very beginning doing these types of projects.
There's two different philosophical camps when it comes to shoreline protection. One is the defensive camp, which is building seawalls, bulkheads, and that's been practiced over time, most specifically in the United States.
It's the conventional approach of, I'm gonna beat that Mother Nature. I'm just gonna armor that thing so hard that she can't possibly move it.
And there's the other philosophical camp, which you actually understand the shoreline processes and working with them. But you need to define what type of environment you're working in. And once you understand what is affecting the shoreline, then you can make intelligent choices how to select a design strategy to effectively manage the shoreline.
Historically, the unwritten standard for encroachment channel works was 35 feet. This one is up to 110 feet. The focus on the design of these projects is on these shallow aquatic beds, and the shape of that embayment is determined by embayment ratio,
which is essentially you have two fixed points, and when the waves come in, they interact and create an embayment shape. And this is ubiquitous across the world.
By building these structures out further, the gap between adjacent headlands can widen, the bays get bigger, and therefore you can protect the same amount of shoreline with less rock.
One of the fears was, well, you can't design a project whereby sand is going to stay in place on the shoreline. It's just going to wash out to sea.
It took a long time to get through the process, to really refine the design so that there was great confidence that this was going to work. It was fascinating to watch it grow, building Hall Road and then using that and building up the beaches.
Most living shoreline projects are the majority of fill. So for this project, we brought in large amounts of sand, gravel, and cobble at the beginning to build our ramp and our access way. The most trucks that we had on any given day was 37 trucks, I believe. And that symphony, that carousel of equipment and personnel and people all moving made that possible. We accessed from land. We did not need to use a barge. So it really minimized the disturbance of SAV beds and underwater habitat. For the whole job, I mean, it was over 800-900 trucks. One of the unique aspects of this project is the headland structures are constructed of a mixed aggregate. Typically, if you look across the bay, you see one size stone that does not have anything living on it or breathing on it. We mix boulders bigger than your vehicle.
And cobble and gravel and sand.
There was even an opportunity to use dredge material from a nearby town.
And it's a mixed, layered aggregate so that we can create a 10-to-1 very gentle slope to allow accretion on the headland structures themselves and ultimately provide for habitat and long-term resiliency.
Then very carefully sculpted so that it would respond to what the river wanted.
We basically take the engineering and the physical components of our permit, but then add a level of art to the project, which is required because nature, isn't an engineered box.
Through the unpredictable weather of late December and January, the project grew quickly. Before you knew it, dump trucks could drive all the way to the end of the beach. These projects ultimately do more than just help the environment. With sea level rise upon us, with larger and stronger storms, building for resiliency can save property and lives.
Resiliency is going to be found in softening the shoreline and working with the wave energies.
For me personally, resiliency is the ability to accommodate sea level rise. It has a dual prong. One is to protect what we own. The other is to protect what ecological services these shorelines provide.
And one of the things that we've focused on in the last 5+ years is trying to build in this resiliency lens into all of these projects. And we want to do that by building robust natural systems that are dynamic but also stable.
These are the systems that you need to have in place to actually accommodate sea level rise.
During these storm events and high tide events, they're not only going to withstand these forces, but they're actually going to build on these forces.
In early April, a series of strong wind events showed how the project fared as the sea level rose and fell 5 feet within 2 days.
It's been stress tested. The water went above the pier. The embayments have been shaped in. It's pure physics. It's called self-design principles. If you set things in the correct position in that time period and you set a trajectory forward, you make sure it trends in the right direction, similar to like raising kids.
With this particular approach, this regenerative approach, we call it, it's as weak as it's going to be as we finish construction. Every day thereafter, it's getting stronger. The grasses are growing, the sand settling into the appropriate position for dynamic equilibrium.
waves being allowed to run up on a shallow beach, drop their sediment load and drop their energies before slowly trickling back out.
The point of living shorelines is not just that you're creating low marsh or high marsh or some arbitrary combination of the two, but preserving the range of habitats that occur in a healthy intertidal system.
But I think it's going to pay off in big ways, not only for the critters and the water quality, but also for other people who want to undertake similar types of projects.
We are looking forward to being here for the rest of our lives and watching the shoreline develop.